Let's move on to sex education. Executive Secretary for the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment says they accept public input into the new comprehensive sexuality education subjects in the curriculum. Some modules in the subject have caused a stir in the public as parents question why 9-year-olds are taught issues deemed sensitive sexually. Some even say this points to an agenda to make children accept LGBT tendencies. Here is private legal practitioner Moses Fo Amwani.
This CSE thing is a classic LGBT strategy, and they started it in the 60s. So it's not that they came it by chance. CSE, Comprehensive Sexuality Education. Question: didn't we have sexual education in Ghana? This book, which was signed by Professor Opoku Amankwa, a very good friend of mine, very learned person, he starts by introducing and telling us that in Ghana, our own traditional people have a way of training our youth in sexuality. Indeed, the whole aspect of puberty is a way of bringing our children from childhood into adolescence. That's our traditional view. Question: why don't we have, don't we have enough intellectuals in Ghana to sit down and bring out what is our traditional view of how to train our people instead of a superimposition of the whole concept? And I'll go through some of the things that they push. According to CSE, sexual pleasure is a right. Sexual rights are human rights. Sexual pleasure should be employed by people of all ages, regardless of age. Limiting access to sexual information or sexual services violates a child's sexual rights. More importantly, children should be able to exercise their sexual rights without interference from their parents, guardians, or other adult caregivers. This is a classic LGBT strategy. They've used it in America, in Europe, and in Canada to such an extent that right now in Australia, if you are a homosexual, you've gotten to because of biological problems or hormonal problems, and you want to seek counseling, you can't even get it. That's how bad it is. So, my dear, they come nicely because Africa, we don't have money. So UNESCO has funded something. Oh, we want to improve your education, and that's how they want to do it. We have the facts, we have the details, and if the ministry and the Ghana Education Service didn't know, we will expose them to the knowledge, we'll expose them to the facts so they can take a decision and withdraw. My dear, they know, these LGBT people know, that if they bring this directly to Ghana, we'll reject it, and it doesn't matter what kind of a politician you are, you're going to be thrown out of the country. So what do? They come nicely through UNESCO, go through the Ghana, the ministry, convince them that, oh, you need to reform your education, and they've got money. We're struggling in Ghana because of money, so we will help you. And then they produce guidelines and hide the details from people. Look at even the color of the. Show it to your viewers. What is the color of this? This is LGBT. This is the color of the LGBT movement worldwide. So PPAG Ghana cannot tell us that, oh, and we heard from the ministry and the Planned Parenthood Association of Ghana and also the Council for Curriculum and Development. They are saying that no, well, Ghana has expunged all the LGBT things. Sorry, it is not true.
I'm winning there, making his point. The point why he thinks that the new guidelines are actually a subtle way of making Ghanaian children or forcing down the throat of Ghanaian children LGBT tendencies. Well, Dr. Ama, who heads the NaCCA, however, says changes will be made to the subject if the public makes inputs. He was speaking on the Super Morning Show with Daniel Dadze.
In this document, the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, who had a representative on the committee that was set up by the National Population Council. The whole idea was, conceptualized from the perspective of the National Population Council in collaboration with Ghana Health Service and the UN. No, it is not the content that will be taught in our schools. This is a guideline that has been set to enable anybody who comes to this country, whether it's an NGO or whether it's an institution that's relating that engages in reproductive health education, would live within this context, within this framework. And let me make this important. The content of this manual has been subject to a review, and as we speak now, the Ghana Education Service recently wrote a letter to us at NaCCA which I have responded that letter accordingly. And in the letter, the Ghana Education Service said that if they would accept this document, then there are some aspects of the objectives of the guidelines be amended. And so they quoted that side, and I wrote a letter to them. So even as at now, there are still areas that probably, if anybody has an issue with, we could, relook at.
Well, the debate has been raging on everywhere in our social circles and on social media as well. Well, that's one of the easiest places to get some of your thoughts. So let's get on social media and find out what people are saying about this conversation. So we put the story there, teaching 5-year-olds about sexuality is clear LGBT agenda, and that's attributed to Four Morning. We posted this on Facebook, and here are some of the comments. Boy Lampard says the outcry is much ado about nothing. Government is not teaching children anything contrary to our traditional beliefs. We should appreciate the fact that children of today are growing and developing in a peculiar context. If we don't give them the information we need to give them to have to be productive, they will get it from dangerous sources. How many parents talk to their kids about their sexual and reproductive health? Where should children get reproductive health education from? Because clearly most of them need it. Many are having unprotected sex at the blind side of parent. Richard Kwekubot says this is a very delicate issue. But then children of today are exposed to such things very early due to technology. Due to this, either they are taught early enough about sexuality, or they are allowed to be their self without any guidance early enough. A lot more in that story, in that post there. He says, or they are allowed to be their self without any guidance early enough on such matters. But then we all know the implications of such things if they are introduced into sexuality with no knowledge at all, or they learn it the wrong way through wrong people. Marcus Mode says, when we were children, we were afraid even to mention our private parts to others. But now they're going to teach them what? You're wondering. And you've had about 10 responses on that. Well, let's get some more of your comments. Kofi Terrier says, so sad about this intention to spoil the Ghanaian child. With this, there will be no need to punish anyone involved in underage affairs. Even a child can have sex. Totally wrong content. Yakubu Abdul Majid says, we are copying everything. I mean, everything, including everything. And you say, sad. Abaji Isaac says the political yo-yos and yebos and the recidivistic politicals in Ghanaian's educational system have become, okay, well, I don't understand this English. He says has become hubristic to fulfill their obligations to pass laws that will ameliorate the, okay. What is happening in Ghanaian educational system today is a leadership muhaha. Leadership, well, you go on and on and on and on. Let me go to the Great. The Great says, I would have loved for life skills to be brought back to the syllabus so as to teach kids going to JHS, not for 5-year-old kids. This is something that affects us all, and we must kick against teaching of kids' sexuality at a very early age. Engineer Awusu Aqua says this nonsense teaching must stop immediately. Other than that, we shall rise up against GES and their partners. Our children are precious to us. Whoever is instigating this must be very careful. It's even an abortion to, or I guess you're trying to say abomination, to mention this to children. God punish you and your ideas. Well, I'm not sure about that. But let's go more. Right, so you can join in the conversation and add your thoughts to what's happening on social media, on Facebook. You can get us as well on Twitter, and of course, we will let you know how that conversation is going. We're keeping our eyes on it. Like we've said, the NaCCA has said that it is open to input from Ghanaians, but a lot of people have said that we needed this explanation earlier enough so people could, Ghanaian parents could add their voice. Well, add your voice to it. What do you think about the new? What do you think about the new sexuality education?